So I think a really important message is that it's transitory, meaning it's a thing that will pass,
Yeah.
like any great disaster, like any great crisis. Everything comes to pass. And when you're neck deep in it, particularly as a young person, 21, 22, under 25, it's hard to see that really this will represent a relatively short period in your life and things will get a lot better.
And like you said earlier as well, the opportunities to do things are never done just in good times. It's always good to start in the now, no matter what the external situation is, because it gives you the opportunity to build your character and also strengthen your relationship with others around you.
Absolutely. And, you would have every reason in the world to feel sorry for yourself right now, particularly if you've lost your job. And I empathize and sympathize with everybody who's lost their livelihood, their job, their income. I feel even more sorry for people who've lost a relative and or has a sick relative and can't visit them. It's tragic. But I really believe at the same time for other people in particular, this COVID-19 can very much present a silver lining.
Like, what value are you creating for other people during the times where you're self-isolating, becoming aware of what kind of skill sets you can build, and how can you build them in the meantime, so that once you release it to the people that need that value, you're able to create some positive contribution to other people's lives.
Yeah, and I love how you focus on the contribution, because it's not all about yourself. And I think, as you said earlier, Patty, if you do focus on yourself and your own kind of small circumstance in this very confined world we live in now, it is overwhelming and it's depressing. So thinking about how you can give to others, and to be honest, it's my motive for doing a vlog like this, for having this conversation with you today, is partly to just encourage people who might be struggling to realize that we're all in this together. We've all had setbacks. I've had tremendous difficulty being away from my brothers, my mother, who's elderly. I've had relatives who've got sick, who've passed away, and most people do have emotional struggles. So what I'd like to say to those people is, be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, and one way you can improve your well-being is by giving to other people and contributing. That's right. A very good point. Yeah.
Because I find myself during this period where you're no longer too busy to travel around, to overschedule yourself and overgive when you don't even have anything in your own cup to give to anyone. But now that you have the time to fill your own cup, it's just a great opportunity to share a new perspective. Like, what insights have you learned since the time where you've now broken out of this illusion and you're just sitting with yourself, understanding who you are so much more better than you did before you had the opportunity to stop being so busy all the time.
Rather than better. So it can really go both ways. If you don't have a positive attitude and a caring attitude, particularly for vulnerable people, meaning old people, maybe unemployed people, young people. These are all the people who are hit really, really hard by this pandemic, and they need all the support they can get.
And the thing that I find with this pandemic is that finally you stop thinking that you're the only one that has a big problem with your life. Because before the COVID hit, I used to think that my problem was so big and nobody can relate to it. But once everyone is in the same boat, now we kind of understand that we all fear very similar things. And there are very important things that we look forward to more than just, for material success or material progression. It's more about fulfillment and being able to spend every moment quality time with people that we love. And without this kind of period to isolate yourself, you wouldn't be able to finally see that you don't need to live with so much ego. And you don't need to be so inauthentic to get what you want. You can be vulnerable, you can be honest, and you can just express sometimes that you're weak, you're feeling weak, and that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's particularly hard for men to do, I think. Women tend to open up, in my opinion, a little bit more with each other in particular, but men like to kind of maintain that tough exterior,
Yeah, tough
uh,
exterior.
yeah, the macho type of thing. But um, we're all human, and our health is not just our physical health. There's emotional well-being, there's mental well-being, and we all have highs and lows, ups and downs, and that's completely normal. So what I'd say, and we discussed this before, is when when life serves you a lemon, what's the expression? Make it tequila.
Yeah,
You got to turn a negative into a positive.
yeah,
You got to look for ways to maintain your mental and emotional well-being. For me, it's exercise is a big thing,
yeah.
particularly in the morning. I found myself battling between my mobile phone
Mm,
and getting outside and just smelling the roses. And I found that smelling the roses and going for a quick walk in the morning is so much better. It sets me up for the day. Eating well, sleeping well, keeping in touch by phone, by through online means with your dearest and nearest, your friends and family, and on a more regular basis than before. These things are essential now more than ever.
it definitely is. In fact, the morning routine that you do is working out and smelling the roses. For me, it's meditating for 30 minutes. and
Wow.
and being able to feel the wind more. Do you get that experience where, because you are more present and you're no longer like mentally trying to like consume so much useless information on social media, that when you go outside and smell, you can smell so much more than you did before, and you can hear the things that you used to like cannot hear. So you're like, no matter where you are, like everything seems more perfect, and you don't feel like you need to be on your phone to make the
That's,
moment perfect. And that's one
it's
of the
like
best experiences I felt during this time.
that's fantastic. I'm happy to hear that. It's like you're almost detoxing from the
That's right.
the rat race and the normal kind of set of priorities we have. But at the same time, we just got to be mindful that we don't spend too long behind a computer, too
Mm,
long on social media, like you said, because I guess that there's an attraction to electronic devices just to keep in touch,
yeah,
and it's seductive.
it
Netflix.
is.
Netflix. I've discovered Netflix. I'm a late adopter, but I've got into it. But at the same time, I'm trying to be careful not to get sucked into it too much. I mean, one of my proudest achievements is um, never watching Game of Thrones.
Okay, same
I
for
watched
me.
60 seconds, I think, and I was like, okay, it's fascinating, but I don't have the time. So I'm quite
Mm,
proud of that. But I'm worried now that I might become one of those people who becomes addicted to that world, and then the algorithms will get me, and then suddenly I become a
mm,
virtual person. But I think you said it at the beginning about being present. I think it's the biggest challenge for young people today is
yes.
to strike that balance. The gift that COVID has given us, if I can say that without being shot to pieces about how bad this is, I think the gift it's given us is it's allowed us to to divert our time elsewhere, to refocus our time, to refocus our priorities, and
Yeah.
to invest in people and invest in things that we normally wouldn't have time to invest in. I mean, working from home, my God, I think it's the greatest thing ever. The proximity, avoiding the commute, avoiding trains, buses, all that business.
So for those students who feel a bit like, oh, where do I start? I understand that it's a good time to like, acquire new skills, but which websites or which sources, like which material do I turn to so that I make sure that I really am set up for the period after the COVID?
Very good question. And in a nutshell, what I'd recommend, Patty, is to sit down with a trusted friend,
Mm,
or on your own, find a moment where you've got maybe 2 hours of relaxing time, maybe a bottle of wine or something, or soft music, whatever, and just look at the big picture of your life, in terms of preparing a goal setting
yeah,
plan, and break it down by lengthy period. So you could be looking at 10 years, 5 years, even 3 years, and then break that period down into 6-month blocks and think,
Mm.
okay, I want to achieve this in 5 years' time, but not just work and not just study. Marry the plan with your personal goals. So
Yeah.
maybe you want when the COVID's finished, you want to visit Queenstown, New Zealand, or you want to learn a new language, or you want to tour Australia in a camper van. Whatever your goals are, write down personal, financial, academic, or kind of professional development, and career. It could even be a relationships goal, romantic or otherwise, and have 5 rows or 5 columns, and then say, okay, in 5 years' time, this is where I want to be financially. This is where I want to be in terms of life experience or adventure. I want to achieve these things, because life moves very, very fast and it doesn't hang around. And you'll discover when you do this kind of mapping exercise over the long term, what you realize, the fascinating thing, and we've done this in professional year training, is that things actually conflict with each other. So your goal of getting married by 28 and traveling the world and also saving, $100,000, they may not be compatible. However, the good thing is that light bulbs, light up in your mind, and you realize, oh my God, I want to climb, 7 peaks of Asia or something. I'm a mountain climber. I can actually achieve one of these now, or I can, whatever. And it's only by doing it all together, considering your life holistically and planning strategically. A lot of people are afraid to do that, but now is the time you really can do it, and write it down.
There was one man who told me about, like, when you're cycling, you want to see where the end goal is. So you want to see like where the long-term vision of where you want to cycle towards is, and then you just look at yourself while you are cycling up the hill. But then it's important that you don't just go off track without a plan. You do need that long-term plan, and then you spontaneously stay in the moment and get to that plan from a state of flow. It's so much easier for you to hit certain milestones and be like, yeah, I am on the right track. Now, do I want to change the track or keep going down this track? And you're always like, you're safe because you've built that path for yourself now. You're not just going like randomly and procrastinating left and right, but you're going straight.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't need for sure. And you don't need every detail mapped out. You just need
a rough,
a rough idea of, this is my goal. I want to have a big family. I don't want to have any family, and I want to travel the world and whatever. And confidence, as I say, is jumping off a cliff and building your wings on the way down. So you can have an outline plan, but be aware it'll change. But you're right, if you don't have that North Star, you can drift. And so many people just drift through life, getting pulled from one thing to another. I've definitely done it myself from time to time. And it's interesting. I mean, you're allowed to do that in your 20s or your teens. It's cool. But eventually you realize that, your 30s and 40s will catch up on you. And then if you decide to have children or get married or whatever, you may not actually be able to do all that you could have done, if you had a plan.
Yeah.
So, it's actually quite easy to do that exercise. You just sit down and think, this is what I want to achieve. And then just let it just kind of reside in your subconscious, and you generally find a way to make it happen. And bizarrely, I have that plan in my pocket.
Wow.
You won't believe this, but I'd written it down, and you might see 6, 12, 24, and it's got family, whatever. It's blank right now, but it's got family, health, finance, personal, relationships, and professional development. And the time periods are 6 months, 12 months, 24, and 60.
Wow.
And it's like a matrix, but it's blank. So I haven't I haven't actually walked the walk fully yet, but I have it in my mind, and I've shared this with some friends, and they've really, really loved the idea, but we're often afraid to do it. We'd even explore the micro details of, well, what are the obstacles? How would you envisage, the stepping stones being to achieve that goal, and will be the biggest obstacles in your way. And then when you think about these things, it really is mind blowing. And then the people who are going to help you achieve those goals. And you get down into all the micro detail, but it takes tremendous discipline and a
Yeah.
very open mind to do that exercise. Because like I said, it's very intimidating to look at the future like that.
I mean, but I guess like the first step is planting the seed. And by just drawing it onto the paper, you've already planted the seed in your subconscious mind that no matter how, like even if you sway or burn out, you have that plan at the back of your mind and you're going to come back to it. And I guess that's what's most
Absolutely,
important is you plan your subconscious properly so that all
yeah.
your actions follow that subconscious programming.
And then when you reach your milestones, and it may even be in 3 or 6 months, even if they're very small milestones, they're very significant because
Yes.
the journey of the 1,000 steps, starts with the first.
Wow. I feel so inspired by this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we've got time now. We have this luxury of looking at our life from a whole different perspective and thinking, wow, this is a great opportunity to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly if you're lucky enough to be in a developed country like Australia. If you're in one of those countries, there's a lot of dreams that can become reality if you
Yes.
know what you want to do.
That's amazing.
Found myself working as the university's career coach not long after I graduated. And since that time, over 2 years now, I've been like the first point of contact for all of the career development related services at the University of Louisiana Monroe. So that's everything from resume writing, professional branding, to interview skills, to career exploration or assessments regarding those things. Well, so that's kind of helping the students bridge the gap between becoming ready for the workforce and what that looks like, the various skills that employers are looking for, and exactly how they can be kind of developing those on a day-to-day basis, or even becoming aware of how their experience translates to those areas. And so, the marketplace, the labor market is changing all the time. So you're having to keep up with trends and help students make the right steps towards, developing themselves and being socially and, from a labor standpoint, agile. And so yeah, I think, first and foremost, there's an attitude that I think is important here. And we kind of mentioned the idea of being agile. Being proactive is certainly going to help you navigate a lot of the issues that are pretty much undoubtedly going to hit you at some point, whether it is something that's going on economically or from the trends of the labor market, etc. But I think, what we are seeing is a shift, and you had mentioned this in, your initial contact, is that we're seeing a lack of structure, or if you will, structure and security is being jeopardized, potentially within a lot of what's going on in the workplace now. The 0-hour contracts and things like that are making it seem little less likely that people are going to remain in their workplace for long periods of time, the way they traditionally were years ago. There was this idea that you would pretty much come out of college, or if you even did, and secure a career that would last a lifetime. You would get your lifetime savings and your essentially retirement benefit had accumulated over those 20, 30 years that you had worked. And it was a very known pathway that many people would embark upon. And now there's not only the idea that things are changing within the labor market that we're seeing, but I think many people envision multiple changes within their career versus the typical trends we would have seen 20 years ago. People are excited by the idea of gaining experience in multiple fields. But if you're a family man who's trying to provide for a certain amount of people, the stability factor becomes a lot more appealing, and sometimes it overrides that self-actualization or personal endeavor that we're very driven by in our college years.
Yeah. And of course, you got to strike a balance between that self-actualization, what would be a comfortable, stimulating, creative type of job for you, and the job that just pays the bills. Because obviously, as you get older, in particular, you're over 30, over 40, you do need that stability and regularity of income. So you're constantly faced with that balance. But the gig economy is a double-edged sword in many ways. On one hand, it allows that freedom to pick and choose when and what you want to work at, but on the other hand, you lack that security, which when you're 25 may not be such a big deal, but when you're 35 and 40, 45, it's massive. When children arrive, if you choose to have a family, you don't want to be explaining to your wife, oh, there's no money coming in this month because it's Christmas, or because of the latest lockdown due to the next variation of the virus. So your job as your own CEO of your career is to adapt quickly, be agile, like you talked about in the beginning, but also to kind of expect the unexpected. And for me, the way to become bulletproof in that regard is skill development. So what's your view on
showing students the Bureau of Labor Statistics when they're in their job searching process? Yeah. Because we can clearly see after the pandemic what industries are thriving, what there's a need for, and then what are on the decline. So if you're kind of feeling like there's somewhat uncertainty surrounding your job or your industry, as you pointed out, the tech demands are raising. So does that mean that AI is going to trump, manpower on the job site more often? If so, and you can envision that, then you should be paying close attention to the industries that are essentially related somewhat to what you work in, but may have more job opportunities for you. And then once that kind of process begins, you really got to be assessing what the transferable skills that you have that emulate or kind of are similar to that of the industry you're interested in. Yeah. And after you've done that, I think you've really got to look at, as you say, the skills that you're missing. And so that's where the continuous education really comes in, because now we have tons of different websites and certifications that you can get, even as simple as LinkedIn being a premium member. You have short to medium courses that you can take that will fill in a niche area or an area that you don't have any experience in. And
micro credentialing is massive. In fact, my view, particularly with the technical opportunities, is that universities and traditional education hasn't caught up. So they don't even have the curriculum to match the pace of change that's going on in the digital world. I mean, between LinkedIn Learning, Google, Digital Garage, Udemy, Coursera, FutureLearn.com, Allison, Linda, these are just some of the websites. Even Stanford have open learning where they're giving away the curriculum. And for me, to see a resume with evidence of your micro learning, which you can actually get badges for now on LinkedIn, that to me is as powerful as a traditional Bachelor of Arts degree that you spend 3 or 4 years at. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, and if you really want to have your finger on the pulse, my recommendation to people I'm helping is work backwards from the job spec of your ideal job and absorb the language, internalize the language, and build the skills to genuinely say, yeah, search engine optimization, computer automated design, graphic design, whatever. Learn the words, the vocabulary of the employers you'd like to work for. Yeah, it's like a new language.
Couldn't agree more. And I think what that spells is agility in itself, because really what you're trying to show the employer is that you have the attitude that they would like to have in their company. They see growth with someone who understands and is willing to accept and navigate change. If you've taken the steps to fill in gaps within your missing skill set, then you're conveying the idea that you're willing and ready to kind of cope with that in the future. And that's what companies are trying to do, is they're constantly trying to adapt and change and grow. And people are under the idea that they need to be excellent and proficient in every sort of hard skill. And to a degree that's true, but I would argue that they would enjoy someone who has the soft skills in the sense of wanting to learn, being coachable, as someone to build with for the long term. And you pointed that out rightly there.
And look, that's language I strongly encourage everyone to have on their resume, even 1 or 2 lines to say you're fully committed to ongoing learning you've got a growth mindset. I love that expression, a growth mindset. So many people don't, call it. I mean, no disrespect, because it's comfortable to just, recycle what you know or think you know and get into a routine. But you have to you have to swallow your pride and open a door to what you don't know.
There just a moment ago, and professional development in some sort or others needs to become part of the routine. That's why through the career exploration process, you're trying to find out more about your skills, your values, your interests, your personality. That happens through, having deep discussions with people you care about, but also asking for feedback when you fail in an interview process. Getting more information on yourself, self-awareness, is going to allow you to understand what the better version of yourself looks like, and then taking actionable steps in your daily life to do that.
We got to protect our self-esteem, our confidence, particularly in this day and age. But asking for negative feedback, I mean, Elon Musk said it really well in an interview he has on a TED Talk. You can Google it. But he's asked for what's your secret of success? And he says that very point. He said, I solicit negative feedback. And he says almost nobody does that, because it's really awkward without a bottle of wine in front of you, or a beer. I mean, I've practiced this with my own kind of workshop participants. I said, next time you're driving and you go around a corner, ask your passengers, how's my driving? And get used to people criticizing you, but for positive reasons. Yeah, they want a safe journey if they're a passenger in your car. But yeah, I fully agree. People, and I like Elon Musk's choice of the word solicit, because I wasn't really familiar with that word, to solicit information. But it really means to try and seek out a difficult truth. You can practice that at home and ask your flatmate, what's it like to live with me? How's my cooking? Am I tidy? They're difficult questions. And bringing that into your professional world is even more challenging. But the first thing, I mean, as you talked about at the beginning, column, is attitude. If you swallow your pride, park any ego, detoxify your ego, and just accept that we're all imperfect, and then ask a close friend at first, or family member, look, how do you think I can improve? And again, I recommend a glass of wine for this one. But if they respect you, some people will love you. They'll give you an honest answer that very often you wouldn't get from a cold relationship. So,
and you have that hard conversation, and things are laid out in its transparent self, and conversation is had. You feel like you're moving forward. You feel like you've progressed in some way. And
especially
I think
if you take responsibility. Like if you're in a rut, you're in a difficult position, it's easy to blame, lockdown, the virus, the economy. You can say, oh, manufacturing's moved to Asia and I'm a manufacturer. You're right. In all those criticisms, you're right. But you cannot, the fundamental truth is you cannot control many things that have an impact on your life. All you can control is yourself. And that ability to go, okay, let's bring this back to me. What can I do? And interestingly, I've found, I'm a bit older than you, Colm, is even in my worst conflict or my worst failures, right? I've had success and failure like anybody, is if I bring it back to myself and I say, look, without beating myself up, how can I take responsibility? And it takes a tremendous level of humility to bring things back to yourself. Sometimes you can't, that you were a complete victim. I get that. And then you just draw a line and you look forward. You need that psychology to be forward looking, like you talked about before. But I really think that you should really search for the you, the I in a difficult situation. What can I do? What can I control? And there's a wonderful Irish expression, I can't remember it, but it's about, empowering yourself with you as an agent of change and dismissing the things you can change. You know the expression I'm talking about. I think it's semi-religious, but it's a great expression for controlling the controllables.
Yeah, and I think the great word that you used there, and it was on the tip of my tongue, was empowerment. I think when you take charge of difficult situations and break that down into things that would kind of accelerate the process of moving forward to a better version of yourself, or if it's career or what have you. It's all really linked. And the attitude is what gets you off the ground, because we can talk here about all the job searching tools in the world, which are important, but if you don't know the tools to get yourself out of the rut and kind of make actionable steps, then we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. And so exactly, yeah. I think really and truly, there's nothing more empowering than taking responsibility for your own future and understanding that, you know, a great deal of it is in your hands if you allow it.
And asking for help. I mean, no man or woman is an island. And we talked about sport earlier because we have something else in common, that we both competed internationally. We've learned a lot from sport about high performance and particularly overcoming adversity, but having the humility to build a team and ask for help and getting the word out there that you're looking for an opportunity in this and this. I mean, I think personally, I think one of the best first interviews you can have is not jumping online, seek.com or whatever, monster.com and waiting to get a call. Is you make the call and say, look, any possibility we could have a coffee, 5-10 minutes. I'd love to learn what you do. I'm a big fan of Pixar, Sony, Dell computers, whatever, and say, I'm a student of this industry. Please educate me. That's an interview. And people will take their hat off and respect you for being proactive like that.
Absolutely. It's such an underrated skill. And what's funny is as well, we have to understand is that the idea of a blind spot assumes the fact that people around us know something about us or our actions or our thoughts that we don't know ourselves. That's really powerful. Yes, it puts you in a position of vulnerability and potential constructive and or negative feedback. But again, if it's used in the right way and you identify where the opportunity lies in that, then you have the opportunity also to move forward in the way that you want. And I really liked your example there of how you could kind of begin networking in your industry. It's such a subtle thing. People don't realize that before you apply for the role and you see a hiring manager, you can insinuate that you would like to have a conversation over Zoom to learn more about the job role, where more intricate pieces of the company and or duties of the role may lie. Once you apply for the job, they're not able to speak with you thoroughly about the role because that's candidate bias. But by initiating the message on LinkedIn or what have you, locating the hiring manager and showing the pieces about your knowledge that you know about the company, the industry, etc., that's an opportunity to sell the personality, the attitude that we said.
Because it's so easy, as you know, just to see the obstacles, the barriers to entry, waiting for that call. My advice is don't wait for that call. You make that call. And so on one hand, you're not asking for a job, you're asking for help, and people genuinely love helping. They really do. I mean, would you agree? If you say, look, I want to learn about what direction you think artificial intelligence will go in, or any job, you could say medicine, engineering, whatever. And I think you're well positioned to just give me a little bit of an insight into it because I'm trying to build my career, blah, blah, blah. For someone to say no to an innocuous question like that, I think would just be cold-hearted and rude. Particularly if you pitch the question in a complimentary way. You reach out to a total stranger and say, I love your work. Any chance I could ask you a couple of questions? Fantastic. Very valid, again, without sitting on the phone waiting for a response or, being behind your computer all the time, is volunteer. I know it's a well-beaten piece of advice, but give to get. You know what I'm saying? Give a service. Say, I'd love to help you guys out. I know internships are a bit controversial because, working for nothing is difficult depending on where you're working. Some of them can be amazing. Some of them can be just downright exploitative. which
Right.
happens a lot, unfortunately. But if you say to someone, say, look, I'm a website developer. I'd love to help you with a couple of backlinks that are broken or something. Or I've noticed that I'll do this on a complimentary basis. I'm trying to build up a portfolio of testimonials or whatever. Fantastic. You do it for nothing. You give to get.
It is really about, creating opportunities and understanding that anywhere you want to go, you'll never get there alone. Anybody and any success I've had, I've built, this kind of ecosystem around me, whether it's professional or not. In nature, it is, because, I'm putting performance experts around me to give me the knowledge and the tools, resources, what have you, to accelerate where I want to go, right? I've identified a goal and I understand the pieces that it takes to get there. And if I don't understand, all the better to surround myself with someone who can educate me on what's missing. And I think through those uncomfortable scenarios of picking yourself up off the ground, you're always reflecting. You're always trying to become more self-aware. And so I think, I've been fortunate that sport has given me a platform to where these conversations are happening between myself and others quite often. And I've become in love with the process of identifying and solving problems. And so
that is building your environment. That's choose. I think that theme of creating an ecosystem, like you mentioned, or choosing your environment, it's so important. I'm a firm believer that 50% of anybody's success or potential failure has to do with their environment. You simply cannot be an elite athlete if you're living in the wilderness in Mongolia or somewhere, or Alaska, without any facilities, coaching, etc. So it doesn't matter how talented you are as an individual. We live in an interdependent world, and choosing your location and the people you surround yourself with, the people you listen to, is a critical part of that, building your environment, building that high performance ecosystem. A very tricky thing to do, but I've seen people's lives being transformed simply by either eliminating certain people, detoxifying their social network, who might be a bad influence, or adding people who are a good influence, or simply relocating from one area to another. Moving away from your parents. Sometimes your own family can be a toxic influence. So choosing those people and the physical environment can be transformative.
No, I couldn't agree more. And it is tough at times to recognize that, someone in our lives or something in our lives is a barrier to our better selves. But understanding it's not personal. It just doesn't coincide with what we want. And, you want to be around people who appreciate your decisions and are going to entice you in ways that facilitate the goal versus... Yeah.
It's holistic. It's holistic. It's like there's no silver bullet to success. It's all those little pieces of the jigsaw. Your personal relationships, your physical environment, your reading material, your learning. It's like a jigsaw. You put all the pieces in place, bang, you get the synergy of all those efforts.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, that's the most exciting part about it, is because we have so much input in all of that, and it goes back to the talk on career coaching and career exploration, that no matter the context, whether it is a goal or objective you're trying to do, there are various resources or pieces to the puzzle there at our fingertips. And so we're looking at that environment that's conducive to that goal. If it is having that coffee or initiating that Zoom call with that professional, or taking that course instead of, spending our time doing something else, we have the power to move the needle forward in the direction that we want, and we should be excited by that. And it's important, when we fall off track, to have compassion for ourselves. Life gets in the way, and we ultimately have to be able to have enough discipline to stay on the path when necessary, but have enough compassion to be kind to ourselves in instances where life hits us hard, and we have that drawback that is essentially feels like it's heartbreaking at the time, but knowing that there's always something small that may be insignificant at the time, something small that could put us in a better position. We're often not satisfied with what that small thing is.
And it's okay to step out of the world, for a few days, a week, a couple of weeks, whatever it takes to to clear your mind, to chill out, to unplug. No harm in that at all. I know one of the things I learned as an athlete was that some of the most successful performers, and the best success I had, was after a period of stepping back. You know, it's like you're trying to get a zip up. Sometimes you have to pull the zip backwards in order to get it forwards. So we need to be conscious that just pushing, getting not quite the result you want, you need to step back. You know, you need to do less sometimes than doing more.
It was a great service, and you know, keep using your resources, keep thinking outside the box, keep moving forward.
Beautiful.